Why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome to NYMTC's Program Finance and Administration Committee, or PFAC meeting. I'm Ian Francis, representative of New York State Department of Transportation and chair of today's meeting. Before we begin, I want to point out the emergency exit should there be an emergency. There are 3 exits. There's one directly behind you. There's one in the corner, and finally there's one to my far left. If anyone needs personal assistance to evacuate, please notify the staff of NYMTC. NYMTC staff, please raise your hands. All right, thank you. Now I'd like to begin this meeting with introductions of the members around the table. I'm asking each member to announce who they are, their agency, and whom they are representing today. Beginning with the far end of the table to my left, please speak clearly into the microphone.
Chris Chatterton, representing Suffolk County, and County Executive Stephen Malone.
Bob Brickman, representing Nassau County Executive Ed Mangano.
Jack Schmidt, New York City Department of City Planning, representing City Planning Chair Marissa Lago.
Jose Rivera, NYMTC.
Mark Albrecht, MTA, representing Chairman Loda.
Naomi Klein, Westchester County, representing County Executive Rob Astorino.
Sandra Fusco, representing Putnam County Executive Mary Ellen O'Dell.
Pat Gurdon, representing Rockland County Executive Ed Day.
Lou Venich, representing Port Authority Executive Director Pat Foy.
David Barron, representing North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority Executive Director Mary Kay Murphy.
All right, thank you. By my count, and under operating procedures, we have a quorum for today's meeting. Today's meeting will be focused on NYMTC's long-range plan, titled Plan 2045, Maintaining the Vision for a Sustainable Region. We'll hear more about the plan later in this meeting, but for now, I'll ask NYMTC's Executive Director, Jose Rivera, to provide his comments.
Thank you, Ian. Good afternoon, PFAC members and all who are in attendance. Today is it's an exciting day for NYMTC. We will be asked to review and recommend adoption of Plan 2045, our next regional transportation plan. This will be a recommendation to the NYMTC Council. There's a council meeting scheduled for June 29th. Transportation is very much in the news now, more than ever before. Our new plan seeks to offer a 28-year blueprint for our transportation system. Our planning area is slated to grow to 14.3 million by 2045. So we must make sure that our programs and projects in Plan 2045 continue to move forward in order to maintain our existing infrastructure and address our long-range transportation needs, so that everyone who utilizes our transportation system can get to where they need to go. Plan 2045 is aptly labeled as maintaining a vision for a sustainable region. It has been a long process to get to this point, and I would like to thank the members and my staff for their hard work and dedication. It was a collaborative effort as we all work towards shared goals and improving our congested, highly traveled region for the better. As my report to you, I would like you to know that NYMTC held a series of public review meetings and webinars for Plan 2045 in Putnam County, Westchester County, New York City, Suffolk County, and Nassau County. I will note that we have received more than 70 public comments through social media, email, regular mail, in person, and our website from the public, elected officials, concerned citizens, community-based organizations, and other stakeholders, all of whom have an interest in the future makeup of our transportation system. NYMTC staff has worked diligently with the members to offer responses to comments related to Plan 2045 and its 2 accompanying planning processes required for federal transportation funding. 2017 Congestion Management Process Status Report and the Transportation Conformity Determination. Hearing from the public and gathering input is imperative to our process. It helps to shape and guide our planning for future. I would like to reiterate my sincerest appreciation for all your collaboration. Collectively, we as a whole share in the future vision of our transportation system as it truly connects us to one another on a daily basis. Following today's meeting, as I mentioned before, the Council will vote on Thursday, June 29th, to approve our next regional transportation plan. PFAC members, I welcome your ongoing collaboration. Additional details of Plan 2045 and our extensive public outreach during the comment period will be provided a little later in this meeting by Jerry Bogas, NYMTC's Planning Director, and NYMTC's Regional Planning Manager, Jan Khan. In other news, there have been some new and exciting changes in our organization since our last meeting. Deborah Nelson has been appointed as NYMTC's Technical Group Director. Deborah has spent the last 25 years with New York State DOT, and for the last 3.5 years, she has worked as a strategic policy advisor for New York State DOT Executive Management. Also, Ali Moseni has been appointed as Mid-Hudson South Transportation Coordinating Committee Staff Director. Ali has been the acting manager of the Model Development Unit since 2005 and has been with NYMTC since 1998. Congratulations, Deborah and Ali. I would also like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Sangeeta Volmik and Darren Moret for stepping in and providing leadership as acting directors for NYMTC. Both performed exceptionally well as acting directors. That's my report for today. With that, I would like to welcome Jerry and Jan to the podium.
One of us, anyway. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Bogas. I'm the Planning Director here at NYMTC. And as Jose pointed out, PFAC will be recommending later today the next long-range plan, which has been an organization-wide effort to put together for about 2.5 to 3 years. So as Jose thanks you all, I'd like to join him in that. The members and their staffs did tremendous work. This is your plan, after all, to put this document together. I also want to recognize Jan Khan, our regional planning manager, who managed this whole process. I'll be tag teaming with him in this presentation. Jan and his staff did an amazing job, and it really took all parts of the NYMTC staff organization to do this also. So the technical group was involved under Sangeeta's leadership. Administrative group helped us with various contracts and so forth, and the TCC staffs in our satellite offices played a large role in assembling information. So this really was an organization-wide effort. So we do have thumb drives for those attending on the sign-in table that have all this documentation, and it is also available on our website, www.nymtc.org. For those in the audience, it's also being shown on the back screen, so if you're in the back of the room and you can't see the front screen, just turn around. I want to note the title. The full title is Maintaining the Vision for a Sustainable Region, and that's significant because of the reference to sustainability. This is the third iteration of NYMTC's planning documents that have focused on trying to practically make the connection between land use and transportation as an approach to sustainable planning. And so that effort continues, and again, I think the kudos to the members to continue to see the wisdom of doing that. So having said all that, let's move on. Why a new plan? Well, there's actually a federal requirement for a new plan every 4 years. So we essentially stop one plan, Jan takes a couple of weeks off to recover, and then we start the process all over again. We do put new information into the new plan on population, employment growth, changing demands and forecasting trends and so forth. We update our transportation funding sources, new information on costs and financial inputs, revised regional priorities. Oftentimes with these new plans, we're responding to new federal requirements. And of course, we're looking at technological developments and situations involving air quality. So all, this new plan is not simply the previous plan, even updated. It is truly a new plan, and it takes all these aspects into an account. So what is the plan? It's a federally required planning product. It's multimodal. It's required every 4 years, as I said, and it needs to have a minimum 20-year planning horizon. We actually do more than that. But it's a framework for the use of federal funding. It establishes a congestion management framework. It establishes fiscal constraint showing what will likely be able to be accomplished over the planning period. It helps the members to select projects ultimately that receive federal funding, and it fulfills requirements under the Clean Air Act for transportation conformity. So it really is a first step into moving projects and improvements through the process to receive funding and ultimately be implemented. Accompanying the plan is something called the Congestion Management Process Status Report. This is produced every 4 years in conjunction with each plan. It's also federally required. This particular effort forecasts future traffic congestion and specific performance measures for the region, and it's published every 4 years with the release of the plan. In fact, they're very much related in that the plan addresses or tries to address the congestion that's forecast in the status report. And of course, this is part of a bigger planning process that is laid out by federal regulations. As you can see by this graphic, the Regional Transportation Plan is the upper right slice, the start of the process, which flips around to the bottom slice, the Transportation Improvement Program, where actual projects and fund sources are identified, and then up the left-hand side to project planning and implementation, which is the purpose for all this. We're basically, through this process, bringing our region to consensus on the use of billions of dollars of federal money that come into our region. And that's very important. It's an important aspect of the region, and it's important to make the best use of that funding as possible. Jose pointed out some part of the public review that was done for this plan, but there was a public involvement process that was quite extensive that happened all throughout the planning process, going back 2 years. We did try to put together explanatory information about the plan, about the issues. We put together online basically platforms that were available to mimic the workshops that we were providing in various locations throughout the region. We did over 30 both general public and customized public workshops. We convened 5 focus groups with people professionally convened to talk to us about issues. We had 10 public review sessions for the draft plan, as Jose pointed out, and we did various other consultations to gather technical advice from stakeholders and the interested public, as well as publicity through a number of different avenues, most notably social media, which we use probably more extensively in this effort than we had in the past. So our challenge is a big one. We have to talk to 12 million people in our region about the future. And so that's a huge challenge, obviously. And we continue to try to improve our efforts to reach out to those people and to get as much information as we can as advice to our members as they're putting the plan together. Now, with that as a bit of overview, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Jan, who's going to talk about the challenges of the future that the plan is addressing. Jan?
Sure. Thanks, Gary, and good afternoon, PFAC members, Chairman, members of the public and staff. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges that are posed in the Regional Transportation Plan for our region. Not surprisingly, our forecast is that population and employment will be growing in the region through the period 2020 to 2045. As you can see from this graphic, some of the larger changes will take place in the suburban counties with of course growth here in New York City. Population, for example, is expected to grow like 17.5%. In the Low Hudson Valley and in Long Island, 14.2%. So that in itself will pose some serious challenges to the regional transportation system. And you'll hear more about how we will be addressing those challenges from Jerry when he does his the other part of the presentation. As I mentioned just now, because as a result of the growth of population and employment and some other factors, our modeling forecasts that trips, whether they're total daily trips, auto trips, or transit trips, will be increasing across the region through the period 2045. And as you would expect, if that happens, then daily vehicle miles of travel and vehicle hours of travel will also increase. And again, that will have some severe impacts on our transportation system. As part of the development of regional transportation plan, we also developed the regional freight plan, which is an appendix to Plan 2045, but in itself is a standalone document in which we'll be taking a look at strategies to address freight movement in the region. And as you can see from this graphic, we are projecting that through 2045 there will be an increase of about 6 to 7% in the freight tonnage movement by mode across the region. As you saw in the previous graphic, there were increases projected for vehicle miles traveled and vehicle hours of delay. What this graphic does is just to break down that information by within the NYMTC planning area, by county and by boroughs. And again, this is not surprising given the growth. If you have growth in population and employment, the chances are that you will have growth in vehicle miles of travel and vehicle hours of delay. This is notwithstanding the fact, and Jerry will be talking about that part of the issue here is that about 94% of our expenditure is on system preservation projects. So not a lot of money is going into system enhancement projects. And that could have an impact on congestion. This slide is really just to show you the scope of the regional transportation system, which you no doubt are familiar with. It's a huge system. This slide just takes that slice of the federally supported transportation system, for which we use federal funds, of course. There are over 90,000 lane miles of interstates, freeways, parkways, over 2,400 bridges of all types, etc. So, again, you're familiar with this. Our system is a huge system, which is why we have to spend so much money on preserving the system. In addition to the trends I just spoke about, there are potential changes that could significantly transform our regional transportation system in the future. The provision and management and use of the services and facilities, and when, how, and why people are traveling and goods are being moved. We've discussed this in the Regional Transportation Planning, Plan 2045, in a section in Chapter 2, which we call Drivers of Change. This slide pretty much identifies the 7 major or key drivers of change which we've identified. They're listed here, from information and communication technologies to extreme weather events and resiliency. We do discuss the topic of the day, autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles, which definitely will become important factors as Plan 2045 is being implemented. Jerry will now talk to responding to the challenges which I just described.
Thanks, Jan. So, the plan first goes through what might be faced in the future in terms of growing demand, an extensive system that needs to be operated and maintained, rather old system, and then this unknown about changes that are happening now and will be happening into the future that might change the arena that transportation exists in. So how does the plan begin to respond to these challenges? Well, first of all, it does provide a strategic framework for all the agencies that you see around the table. They're all responsible for some portion of the transportation system as a whole. They come together as NYMTC, and there's value added. They're looking at a framework for all of them, not just for the particular jurisdiction that they have. And that involves strategic goals and desired outcomes, a number of near-term actions, the sustainability features that we'll be talking about in just a minute, and then establishing what we can, what we anticipate being able to do fiscally, and how projects might be both eligible and selected for funding. So this is a strategic framework for Plan 2045. Our strategic goals are, as you can see here, they're kind of small, unfortunately, but there are 8 of them. Pretty much motherhood and apple pie here, except for the fact that each of the goals is accompanied by a number of desired outcomes, which the members feel really focuses each of the goals on areas that the planning process needs to work within. So this is a strategic framework for the regional planning process. The components of the plan are varied. If you've been on the website or looked at the thumb drive, you can see that there are 8 chapters in the plan, and then there are, 11 appendices? And these are areas that we have to cover based on the federal regulations. So it's a quite complex set of documents. It does involve a shared vision and a strategic framework. It establishes what the federally supported transportation system is, inventories that, assesses conditions and so forth, and then identifies improvements to it into the future. It identifies the long-range finances in the 3rd column there, what the capital costs and resources might be, operations and maintenance costs and resources, and any supplemental resources we may need. And finally, there are a number of special elements that have to be addressed. Chief among them, a pedestrian bicycle plan, a regional freight plan, and a coordinated public transit human services plan, all of which help to determine how federal resources are used going forward. So it's a complicated set of information. Now, I want to just give you an illustration of fiscal constraint here. These are not real numbers. This is simply an illustration. But what we do when we establish fiscal constraint, which is really the foundation for the entire planning process, is to forecast reasonably expected revenues, federal, state, local, private in some cases, into the future, any supplemental financing alternatives that we might identify that might be needed. And that's our forecast of our envelope of resources that we can work within. We then establish that the first 5 years of this forecast is what is known as the Transportation Improvement Program, which identifies near-term projects that are being implemented. The next part of the forecast is the constrained plan. This is fiscally constrained. These are the actions and projects and programs that we are projecting that we can undertake within this funding envelope, and that determination starts the process of federal eligibility. And then finally, there's a whole area of the plan that's the vision element. This is unconstrained, it's speculative. Many of the projects and improvements identified are conceptual. The funding is not necessarily identified. Costs aren't even identified in some cases. But it's an important guideway into the future in terms of going beyond what's simply in the constrained plan and looking at what might be done should more resources become available. So this is an illustration of what fiscal constraint means. And we do have to take into account in this fiscal constraint forecast all the system preservation costs over the period of the plan. So we're forecasting the entire system, everything that's federally eligible, aging it out and identifying when different components need to be replaced or refurbished, and putting that together into a cost. And as Jan pointed out, that's about 94% of the projected resources are taken up simply with system preservation. So financially, Plan 2045 proposes $627 billion in year of expenditure dollars inflated to the year that they will actually be expended to adequately operate and maintain the system components and services. So this is the operational side. about $22.4 billion per year, all sources and all jurisdictions that are federally eligible. That's a large amount, but we need to show the federal agencies that we can, in fact, show that we can operate and maintain what we're proposing and what we're planning for. Underneath that is about $463 billion for system preservation projects and strategies. So this is more on the capital side, and this is what it's going to cost by our projections right now to preserve and maintain the system as it is. And on top of that, or below it actually, in this graphic, approximately $33 billion for various system enhancement projects are identified in the fiscally constrained plan. Okay. When we look at the system enhancements, which are obviously very important given the congestion and the growing demand that's forecast, we can see that they're moving through the process at pace. 30% of the funding for system enhancements is in the current TIP. That's just under $10 billion. The other 70% is in the fiscally constrained plan. So these projects are moving through. There are projects that are no longer in the plan, such as the 2nd Avenue Subway, Phase 1, which were in the plan for many years. So we're seeing the results of the members' choices on these system enhancements and these large projects that are moving through the system and being implemented. These are the major system enhancements that are in the constrained plan. I'm not going to go through this in detail at this point, but you can see various items from all across the region, starting with the Lower Hudson Transit Link in the Hudson Valley, Penn Station Access, down into various items in the city of New York, including the Farley Building, phases 2 through 4 of the 2nd Avenue Subway, the Canarsie Power, and then out to Long Island you see the Long Island Railroad Main Line Enhancement Project, the transit improvements in the Nassau Hub, and various components, the second track on the Ronkonkoma branch, and various components of the Connect Long Island plan. So these projects are, in fact, within the fiscally constrained plan and are poised to move forward as the members that make decisions on funding and how they're going to be financed going forward. And these are just the double stacks that show basically that we show the federal government that we're forecasting costs on the right, total amount there with the system enhancements of almost $500 billion. And on the left are the anticipated resources. And we show that at the upper level of the federal range, we do forecast a range federally. At the upper level, additional funding is on the order of about $3 billion. And we identify potential supplementary sources that might fill that gap. At the lower level, it's a bit more. So, there is a bit of uncertainty, obviously, in these assumptions on financial resources that will be available, and our financial plan accommodates that by identifying supplemental resources and what might need to be done to implement them if the members choose to use them. And now I'm going to go back to Jan. He's going to finish up talking first about the sustainability features and then a little bit about the vision element.
Thanks again, Jerry. I'll conclude this presentation by just talking about a couple of facets, other facets of the of Plan 2045. Earlier on, Jerry spoke about the nexus between land use and transportation. So in our Plan 2045, what the members have done, what we've done, is to identify some locations where changes to land use and transportation will help to shape future growth and a manner in which the growth is accommodated by the transportation system. In the plan, we refer to these as coordinated development emphasis areas, and you could read all about them in Appendix 11 of the plan. These really provide a framework for sustainable growth and development in the planning area, and there are really targets for development and transportation investment in a coordinated fashion, and particularly linked to the existing and future transit network. You will not be able to read this, I think, but these are just examples of where the coordinated emphasis areas will occur in the New York City area and in Long Island. But again, these are all shown with much more clarity in Appendix 11 of the Plan 2045. Apologies. Jerry did mention the vision element of Plan 2045. And these are actually projects, when they come to fruition, that could have really huge impacts on the regional transportation system, and in many ways address some of the issues that we spoke about in terms of enhancing the system itself. This slide pretty much highlights some of those, and I would encourage you, if you have not done so, to read chapter 6 of the plan. These are all fully explained in terms of their status in that chapter. And you know, these vision projects include the Hudson River Tunnel, the Port Authority bus terminal replacement, the Cross Harbor goods movement, etc. These are some others. And these are the ones in Long Island and the Lower Hudson Valley. And as the slide shows, if the ones on the previous slide and these taken together, we estimate that if funds do become available, this could cost the region somewhere between $50 and $75 billion. This slide shows some of the significant planning studies in the vision element of Plan 2045. And again, if and when projects do come out of these studies, they could really have a significant impact on the regional transportation system and really would transform the system itself. And hopefully that will happen sometime through 2045. These are some additional ones in Long Island and the Lower Hudson Valley. And pretty much that concludes the presentation on Plan 2045. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan and Jerry. I'd like to ask the members if they have any questions for the presenters.
Why did it take so long?
I won't ask that question. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Jan and Jerry regarding the plan? Oh. Okay, so thank you, Jan and Jerry, for the presentation. We're now in the public participation section of the meeting. We've been given some names and to participate. We've set aside 15 minutes in the agenda to hear from each speaker. We will hear from these speakers in the order that they registered to speak for the duration of the allotted time. We ask that all registered speakers limit your comments to relevant transportation and planning related items and to less than 3 minutes, so we can hear from as many speakers as possible in the allotted time. If you have written comments, you can give them to me when you approach a microphone provided in the front of the dais. First speaker is Aaron Getz from MNRCC. Thank you.
I guess it's microphone work. My name is Aaron Getz. I'm Vice Chairman of the Metropolitan Rail Commuter Council. Today I had an experience of using the Tappan Zee bus to not to Tarrytown, but to White Plains. The system doesn't work. It's going to be a big problem because the plans for the new Tappan Zee Bridge, when it opens, is to replace the existing Tappan Zee Express bus service with a new Lower Hudson Transit links that's going to be basically using White Plains instead of Tarrytown as the center of the connection from Rockland County to Metro North. It just does not work. And we can't have a system that does not work. We have to have a system based around using more service to Tarrytown, and that's a very, very critical issue here. We have to see that we have the service that the people need, not some service that somebody sat in an office and planned and didn't know what they were doing. And that's exactly what we see here coming. And the vehicles may not even be the right type of vehicles, and it's going to be a huge problem. And we have to see what can be done to correct this before we have a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. That concludes our presenters for today. We'll move on to the action items section of our agenda. The first item is the synopsis. There were copies available on the dais on the sign-in table. I'm asking the members for a motion to accept the meeting synopsis. I request all members to announce your name and the agency you represent when you make a motion or second a motion. Motion to accept the April 20th, 2017 meeting synopsis.
Naomi Klein, Westchester County.
Okay, thank you.
Second, Bob Brickman, Nassau County.
Bob Brickman, Nassau County, thank you. All right. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Our second item is to adopt resolution number 449, recommendation of the draft federal fiscal year 2018 to 2045 regional transportation plan and related congestion management process status report for council adoption. That was also available at the sign-in table, and we heard the presentation from Jan and Jerry. Jan?
Chairman, PFAC members, once again, thank you for this opportunity. It's really been a long and arduous journey getting here. And there were times when I feared about us getting here, but here we are. And please indulge me, but I really do want to thank the PFAC members and especially those who have been on the RTP committee, the finance subcommittee, and all of the other subcommittees, whether it was freight or the coordinated plan. Also our US DOT partners, I think they were very helpful in our process. The members of the public who subscribed to what we were doing and gave us really good input. Other stakeholders, of course, there were the freight folks and the special needs transportation folks, and of course, fellow staff members. But also, I'd like to say that we had this unique arrangement where New York City Department of City Planning functioned as our consultant on this project and did a really great job in helping us to bring it all together. That's really for Plan 2045. So here we are, and at the point where I can now ask the members of PFAC to adopt Resolution 449, which will recommend to the Council the adoption of Plan 2045 and the affiliated 2017 Congestion Management Process Status Report. Both of these documents meet all of the required federal requirements, and they've undergone the required public involvement process and public review process. And so in meeting the letter of the Memorandum of Understanding where PFAC needs to recommend the adoption of these documents to the Council, I'm asking you to adopt this Resolution 449 so we can move forward with that action.
Thank you, Jan. Do we have a motion to adopt resolution number 449, recommendation of the draft federal fiscal year 2018 to 2045 regional transportation plan and related congestion management process status report for council adoption?
So moved. Jack Schmidt, New York City Planning.
Jack Schmidt moves. Do we have a second?
Second, Pat Gurdon, Rockland County.
Pat Gurdon, Rockland County, seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. The next item is resolution number 450, authorization to enter into a memorandum of understanding with neighboring metropolitan planning organizations, councils of government. Jerry Bogaz will introduce the resolution.
So before you do that, I just want to say, I don't know what Jan would have done if you hadn't adopted the resolution. But jumping out the window isn't really an option. So Resolution 450 has to do with our coordination with our neighboring metropolitan planning organizations and councils of government, one of whom is here at the table, North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. In January of 2008, you adopted a resolution that accepted a memorandum of understanding between NYMTC and 4 other MPOs, one of which was North Jersey TPA and 3 in Connecticut. Since that time, the state of Connecticut has reorganized the councils of governments in their state, which serve a different function since they don't have counties in Connecticut. And because of that, there was a need to revise the Memorandum of Understanding to reflect the reorganization. In addition to that, there's been an expansion of this body, which, by the way, is called the Metropolitan Area Planning Forum, or MAP Forum. The COG that represents New Haven, Connecticut, is joining, as is the MPO in Orange County to our north, and also, hopefully, the MPO in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. Pretty soon we'll have the whole Eastern Seaboard, but we're taking it step by step. This is important because obviously the commuter shed in our area is larger than any one of these bodies. And the coordination that we've been able to undertake through the MAP Forum has been very substantial and very substantive. So what this resolution does is authorizes the Executive Director, Jose, to sign the new MOU, which will then provide for a revised MAP Forum with additional bodies and the reorganized bodies in Connecticut. Any questions?
Thank you, Jerry. I should mention that copies of the resolution are available on the sign-in table. Now, do we have a motion to adopt resolution number 450, authorization to enter into a memorandum of understanding with neighboring metropolitan planning organizations and councils of government?
So moved. Naomi Klein, Westchester County.
Naomi Klein, Nassau County, Westchester County moves the motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Karen Summer, New York City DOT.
Karen Summer, New York City DOT, seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Our last action item is to adopt resolution number 451, amendments to the State Fiscal Year 2017 to 2018 Unified Planning Work Program. Setu Allen will introduce.
Good afternoon. So these are amendments to the State Fiscal Year 2017-2018 Work Program. The counties of Rockland and the counties of Suffolk are requesting each to add ongoing projects to the 2017-18 Work Program. These are projects that were programmed for but not completed as anticipated during State Fiscal Year 2016-2017. In addition, Nassau County is requesting to add a new project to the work program, the Downtown Hicksville Revitalization, Traffic Impact, and Complete Streets Assessment. Finally, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is requesting to add to NYMTC's catalog of other studies the Port Master Plan in the interest of regional collaboration and coordination. NYMTC staff has reviewed these actions, and found them to be consistent with the plan. NYMTC staff requests that you adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Setu. Again, this resolution is available on the sign-in table. I'm seeking a motion to adopt resolution number 451, amendments to the State Fiscal Year 2017-2018 Unified Planning Work Program. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved. Bob Brickman, Nassau County.
Bob Brickman moves.
Second, Jack Schmidt, New York City Planning.
Jack Schmidt, New City Planning, seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. The next conference meeting, council meeting, will take place on June 29th, which is 2 days from now, at this office, 25 Beaver Place, Suite 201. The next PFAC meeting will be held on September 28th, 2017, also at this office at 12:15 p.m. We have a motion to adjourn.
New York City DOT.
Council. Second.
Chris Chatterton, Suffolk County.
Chris Chatterton. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.